serve, hopefully as a conduit to an IT solution, to the keynote address by Dr Rosanne Haggerty, founder and director of the Community Solutions New York, USA. I'm not going to give her an introduction because we're a bit short on time, but many of us would be aware that she was the thinker in residence, had enormous impact on the policy and programmatic landscape in South Australia first, then Australia as a whole, and we have her by DVD, I believe. So hopefully that can run now. Otherwise, I'll hum.
I'm Rosanne Haggerty, the President and CEO of Community Solutions, and very honored to be with you today. I think often and fondly of our long relationship with South Australia and the cause of ending homelessness there. And when I first became involved was in 2004, when Monsignor David Capo, then the head of the Social Inclusion Unit, came to visit us in New York. I was at the time leading a predecessor organization, Common Ground, which had been created to build new housing models to end homelessness in New York City. And Monsignor Capo had seen some information on our work, came to visit and explain the context in South Australia of the state's long commitment to issues of sound social policy and to innovative thinking with respect to how to advance opportunities for all members of society and the state. That gave rise, that thinker in residence experience, which was absolutely marvelous, to the creation of Common Ground in Adelaide. Happily, the leadership of South Australia in looking at housing models, in particular permanent housing models, to end homelessness for good, cost-effective, humane, forward-looking ways of helping people return to mainstream society. That very practical model of supportive housing that we had helped to pioneer in the United States not only has been adopted with great success, as you all know, in South Australia, but South Australia has set the course for other Australian states, territories, in taking up the model, and we've been thrilled to be a partner and supporter of many more supportive housing developments built on the Common Ground model. What I thought I would do in our time together today is just to highlight some of the critical learnings that are driving not only our work in the U.S. And the international work that we're supporting, but I think reflect what we've come to understand about what the future of interventions in homelessness should look like. The headline of our work and what I'm eager to share today, and is illustrated frankly in the Common Ground model, is that consolidation and integration of different services is really the way of the future. For too long, we've thought of people who are experiencing homelessness as homeless, as opposed to people with a health issue or with mental health or substance misuse or criminal justice issues. And our different systems have not worked in concert to get to root cause solutions that are humane and cost-effective and frankly quick. One of our key insights, and this has really come about through years of work now with population health organizations, is that we need to begin first and foremost by looking at people experiencing homelessness as people. What are the critical drivers of their conditions? What are the ways in which we can pull resources together across the whole of communities to get to lasting solutions that involve stable housing and connection to the health, mental health, employment, and social supports that people need to become contributing and appreciated members of the community. What we've really come to see is that all of these different systems, from housing to health to mental health to the criminal justice system, all of these resources really need to come together around people. And we need to begin by knowing by name each of those individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness and creating smart and prioritized systems for getting people the lasting assistance they need in the most direct and uncomplicated way. With that as a framing, I'd like to just share some stories to illustrate how this shift has happened. Back in the day when I was starting Common Ground, and you can see this in terms of a parallel in South Australia with the first Common Ground project at Franklin Street, connected with the new bus station. What our insight had been at that time was that the gap between addressing homelessness and ending homelessness was a housing gap. We created attractive, affordable, mixed-income housing that would allow people coming from homelessness and people who are lower-wage workers to live in a stable, attractive, well-connected building that had joined to it the health and mental health and employment supports that any of us need to thrive. We began wondering whether we had totally figured out a comprehensive solution to homelessness, though, back in New York, when I continued to pass the same people on the street who'd been homeless for a long period of time. And it was that series of questions about why isn't this great solution of housing that plainly is working and creating a foothold in the community again for people who've had very challenging circumstances. Why is it not reaching people who in our communities we've seen and known to be homeless the longest? That was the set of questions that gave rise to the Street to Home program, which Adelaide and South Australia were pioneers in introducing into the Australian context. And that focused on people who'd been living outside the longest and had fallen through the cracks in multiple systems. And once we began to focus on that group of individuals and linking them directly to housing, not expecting that they would go through a day center or transitional housing or shelter or other treatment-like programs, but helping people get right back into housing and supporting their success there. An approach that's come to be known as housing first. That was the breakthrough innovation, that we could actually not only have the right successful housing that made sense for everyone in the community because people left homelessness for good and it was far less expensive to support them in this type of housing than to allow people to be in and out of emergency rooms and jails and other emergency services. That, coupled with an affirmative, strategic, prioritized focus on people living on the streets the longest and moving them into housing, was the combination of approaches that led to significant reductions in street homelessness in New York. So that leads me to the leap beyond simply connecting supportive housing with affirmative outreach, the Street to Home program, and leads us to the creation of Community Solutions 3 years ago, which has been about helping communities at a very wide scale adopt the practices and disciplines around complex problem solving to actually identify the most vulnerable members of their communities and do whatever it takes using process improvement, data, and other tools taken from other sectors to get the job done of moving people permanently into housing and eliminating once and for all the risks of homelessness. Let me step back, though, from that storyline and highlight the principles and the specific innovations which we've been delighted not only to share with colleagues in South Australia, but in sharing to really learn information that has informed our practice and has improved our ability to both make headway in this country on homelessness, and we hope to continue this learning journey together. So let me then highlight the principles that we've learned in the course of our work at Common Ground Community Solutions, and frankly my work on this issue over 3 decades. These are insights that really in many ways have been informed and shaped by our experience working with colleagues in Australia, not only the work we're doing now in over 200 cities, counties, and states in the United States. First, it's the insight that we need to make one system out of the varied silos and streams of work. We cannot have more stable communities and reach and meet the needs of our most vulnerable residents if we have health systems that are separate from housing systems, that are separate from behavioral health systems, if we operate in ways that sort of reaffirm separation and kind of bureaucracy instead of the needs of vulnerable citizens to be known and to quickly receive the whole of community support that can make a difference in moving them out of homelessness and long-term vulnerability. Second, we have come to appreciate that whether it's housing, jobs, any quote-unquote service, we need to be able to operate without condition, meaning people who are struggling, people who've been stuck in long-term poverty, in homelessness in particular, we need to be responsive to their situation immediately. Housing first, jobs first, basically offering the help that people will need to change their situation has to be done without condition. We've also learned that homelessness is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and our practices and policies have to allow for personal approaches. For most, happily, homelessness is a short-term crisis, and the support that people need to escape homelessness at that stage is much more likely to be about job assistance, housing referral, short-term financial assistance. What we also need to have the capacity to do, however, is recognize those circumstances where an individual or family is trapped in a long-term problem, that some type of transitional or emergency response is not going to be sufficient. We know enough. All of us working in the field in the United States and in Australia have access to tools that can help us identify and prioritize based on objective information on individual and family history and health conditions. Who's in what situation? Who simply needs some immediate emergency help versus who is going to need much more comprehensive and long-term assistance. One of the insights is that housing and getting people into stable housing as quickly as possible, whatever that looks like, reconcile with the family or back into their own home if there's a way to prevent the loss of a home, or into a new and stable situation, that whatever the challenges, whether it's health or mental health or family violence issues, without a stable home, it's very hard to make progress on these other matters, and I think that that's been a profound learning from our collective work on this issue and the surrounding social challenges over the last 20 years. Homelessness, we've also come to see in the United States and in other international contexts where we've worked, is very much as well a reflection of local community planning and other government decision-making processes. What we have started to work on in the United States, and it's becoming quite a sweeping interest, is looking at the communities of concentrated poverty, the neighborhoods, and I can identify some of them in South Australia, where there is an elevated rate of chronic disease, truancy, involvement with the criminal justice system, of frankly concentrated poverty. These are the neighborhoods that need a different type of attention if we're going to prevent homelessness downstream. One of the things that big data and our access to more information about the use of government services, patterns of activity in urban areas, one of the things that this tells us is where we need to focus our preventative attention. And it's not a random state of affairs that people are equally at risk of homelessness in every part of our community. And one of the things in the United States that we believe can be quite instructive for similar communities in Australia is to pay particular attention to the individuals and households who have had repeated encounters with government systems, and to recognize that those individuals who tend to live in concentrated areas of our communities need different kinds of interventions and help to get on to a more stable path far earlier than we have perhaps offered in the past. And so neighborhood planning, the focus of government services, critical opportunities to close the front door to homelessness, if you will. So in closing, I want to appreciate and commend all of you for continuing to fight the good fight on ending homelessness for good in South Australia. We've learned so much over the last 10 years of our relationship, our long and treasured collaboration with colleagues there in South Australia, and want to encourage you to keep moving beyond where you are, to shake off the status quo, to appreciate that the future of progress on this issue will not be about maintaining services and approaches that we have built over the years, but about moving into new ways of problem solving that hold a whole community together and that look at ending homelessness for good as the only acceptable goal. Thank you.